Talyawani was only 19, full of dreams and excitement as she prepared for her university entrance party in the lively town of IJ. The whole village buzzed with music, food, and laughter as family and friends gathered to celebrate her success. She wore a bright dress, her face glowing with pride. Yet something about her mother's behavior felt strange. Folake moved around with smiles that looked more forced than real, greeting people but carrying an uneasy tension that only a few could notice. When the time came to bless her daughter, Folake brought out a cup filled with a strange herbal drink. With soft words, she handed it to Talyawani, saying it would make her strong and ready for the future. Trusting her mother's care, Talyawani raised the cup and drank, unaware of the hidden darkness behind that gift. At first, she laughed with her friends and cousins, but soon her body began to betray her. A sudden dizziness clouded her head, her heartbeat quickened, and her hands trembled. Guests assumed she was overwhelmed by excitement, but her cousin Buseo's sharp eyes caught the unusual struggle. As Buseo moved closer, she overheard a chilling whisper. Folake leaned toward her sister, her voice laced with bitterness, saying that once Talyawani was gone, everything would finally belong to her. The words hit like thunder, revealing that the drink was not a blessing but a trap. Before Buseo could react further, Talyawani collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Panic filled the celebration, screams rising from every corner as people rushed to help. Folake quickly denied any wrongdoing, her face tight with fear as Buseo demanded answers. Among the guests was Dr. Adebayo, a respected physician in the village. He stepped forward, calm but firm, examining the girl and declaring it was poisoning. The crowd froze, their joy turning into horror. All eyes turned to Folake, whose attempt to slip away was blocked by elders who stood tall and refused to let her escape. Under the heavy weight of truth, Folake broke down, her voice shaking as she admitted that jealousy had consumed her, that she could not stand watching her daughter shine brighter than she ever could. Talyawani was rushed to the hospital, fighting for every breath. Through strength and will, she survived, her spirit proving stronger than her mother's betrayal. The village rejoiced at her recovery but turned its back on Folake, who was stripped of respect and banished from family gatherings. What was meant to end Talyawani's future instead made her story unforgettable. A tale of betrayal, survival, and the power of resilience. Folake handed Talyawani a cup filled with a strange herbal drink, her eyes fixed on her daughter with a smile that did not quite reach her heart. "Drink this, my daughter. It will make you strong for your future," she said softly, pushing the cup gently into her hands. Talyawani, full of trust and excitement for her special day, raised the drink without hesitation, believing her mother's words. Around them, music played and laughter filled the air. But Buseo, her cousin, noticed the way Folake's hands shook slightly as she gave the cup away. Talyawani sipped the mixture, the bitter taste lingering on her tongue. She forced a smile and continued chatting with her friends, but moments later, a wave of dizziness swept over her. Her heartbeat raced, her chest tightened, and her fingers trembled uncontrollably. Guests clapped and cheered, thinking she was simply overwhelmed with joy. But Buseo's sharp eyes caught the fear hidden in Talyawani's expression. Something was wrong, and it wasn't excitement. As the celebration went on, Folake leaned close to her sister, whispering words that chilled the air. "Once she's gone, all will finally be mine." The truth behind the drink began to surface, a truth filled with envy and betrayal. Buseo's stomach turned as she realized what she had just heard. Before she could confront her, Talyawani staggered and collapsed, gasping desperately for air. The music stopped, screams echoed, and panic spread like wildfire through the crowd. Folake rushed forward pretending to care, denying every suspicion when Buseo shouted for help. Just then Dr. Adebayo, a respected physician who had come as a guest, pushed through the frightened people. He knelt beside Talyawani, checking her pulse and examining her weak body. His voice rang clear. "She has been poisoned." The revelation sent shockwaves through the gathering. Faces turned to Folake, whose mask of innocence began to crumble. The elders stepped in, blocking her path when she tried to slip away. Surrounded by accusing eyes, Folake finally broke, her tears spilling as she confessed. Jealousy had eaten deep into her soul, and she admitted she could not bear the thought of her daughter's rising future shining brighter than hers. Talyawani was rushed to the hospital, fighting for her life with every breath. Against all odds, she survived, her strength astonishing everyone. Folake, on the other hand, lost her honor and respect, cast out from family gatherings, remembered not as a mother of love, but as the woman who tried to destroy her own child out of envy. Minutes later, Talyawani began to feel dizzy, her heartbeat racing wildly as if it wanted to burst out of her chest. Her hands trembled so much she could barely hold her dress together, her vision blurring as she tried to stay steady. She smiled faintly, trying to convince those around her that she was fine. But inside, fear was growing. Laughter and music continued to echo around the party, and many of the guests thought she was only overwhelmed with joy and excitement after such a big achievement. They clapped, cheered, and kept dancing, completely unaware of the silent storm happening inside her body. Buseo, her cousin who knew her best, noticed something that others missed. She saw the way Talyawani's lips turned pale, the way sweat trickled down her forehead even though the evening air was cool. Concern tightened Buseo's chest, and she quickly moved closer, placing a hand on her cousin's shoulder. "Are you all right?" she whispered, searching Talyawani's frightened eyes for answers. But Talyawani could not find the strength to reply. Her throat felt dry, and her breath came in uneven gasps. Guests around them dismissed Buseo's worry, laughing lightly and saying she was just too emotional. Some even teased that it was normal for a young girl at her first big celebration to feel faint. But Buseo knew it was more than nerves. The trembling was too strong, the weakness too sudden. She held Talyawani's arm tightly, refusing to let go as she watched her cousin struggle to stay upright. Talyawani tried to take a step forward, but her legs wobbled beneath her. The room seemed to spin, the voices around her fading into muffled sounds. Panic began to rise in Buseo's heart as she realized something terrible was happening. She shouted for help, drawing the attention of those nearby. Still, some guests rolled their eyes, thinking she was overreacting. Then, as if the night itself had shifted, Talyawani's knees buckled. She swayed helplessly, her body betraying her completely. Buseo caught her before she hit the ground, screaming her name in desperation. The laughter and music stopped instantly, the crowd turning silent as shock rippled through the celebration. Gasps and cries filled the air as everyone finally understood this was no simple fainting spell. Something dark was hidden beneath this moment of joy, and Buseo was the only one brave enough to face it first. Folake leaned close to her sister, her voice low but sharp, carrying words that froze the air around them. "Once she's gone, all will finally be mine." She thought no one could hear her, but Buseo, standing nearby, caught every single word. Her heart pounded in her chest as the weight of the whisper sank in. The drink Talyawani had taken was not a blessing as everyone believed. It was betrayal wrapped in a mother's smile. Buseo's eyes widened in horror, her breath catching as she realized the truth about what had just been given. The celebration continued around them, with drums beating and people cheering, unaware that danger was unfolding right before their eyes. But Buseo could no longer see the joy. All she saw was her cousin struggling to stand, her lips trembling, her chest rising and falling in painful gasps. She replayed the whispered words in her mind, every syllable cutting deeper. How could a mother plan such harm for her own child? The thought made her stomach churn. Talyawani staggered, gripping Buseo's hand tightly as if her strength was slipping away. Buseo tried to steady her, whispering encouragement, but her mind was racing. Should she confront Folake right there, in front of everyone? Should she scream the truth aloud so the whole gathering would know? The whisper had shattered everything. The trust, the love, the pride of a family moment. Buseo glanced back at Folake, who still carried that forced smile, moving among the guests as if nothing had happened. It was almost too perfect, too controlled, as if she believed her secret was safe. But Buseo knew it wasn't safe anymore. She felt the anger rising, the urge to expose the darkness hiding behind the mask of motherhood. The crowd began to murmur as more eyes turned toward Talyawani, who now bent forward, clutching her stomach in pain. The music faded slowly as confusion spread, and whispers of concern replaced the cheerful laughter. Buseo clenched her fists, her voice finally breaking as she cried out for help. She knew what she had heard could not stay hidden, not when Talyawani's life was slipping away before their very eyes. In that moment, the truth began to push itself into the open. The whisper meant to stay secret was now the spark that would reveal the poison of envy, and nothing would ever be the same again. Talyawani collapses, gasping. Panic spreads through the celebration as her body hits the ground, her chest rising and falling in painful, uneven breaths. Guests scream and scatter, their joyous laughter replaced by cries of fear. Plates fall, music stops, and the once lively atmosphere turns into complete chaos. Some rush forward to help, others stand frozen, shocked at the sight of the young girl fighting for air on the night that was supposed to celebrate her future. Buceo throws herself to the ground beside her cousin, holding her trembling hands tightly. "Stay with me, Talyawani," she pleads, her voice breaking as tears rush to her eyes. Desperation fills her tone as she looks around wildly for help, but anger quickly mixes with fear, and she turns toward Folake, her voice sharp and accusing. "What did you give her? What was in that drink?" she shouts, shaking with rage and disbelief. Folake raises her hands in denial, her face painted with a mask of shock. No, it was only herbs to bless her," she insists, shaking her head, her words quick and defensive. But Buceo remembers the whisper, the chilling words spoken only moments ago, and fury burns inside her. "Don't lie," she cries, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "You wanted this to happen. I heard you." The crowd stares at Folake, whispers rising like smoke. Mothers clutch their children tighter, elders exchange troubled glances, and men murmur in disbelief. Folake shakes her head harder, stepping back as though the walls are closing in. She has done nothing wrong, that she only wished her daughter well. Yet her trembling hands and restless eyes betray her denial. Meanwhile, Talyawani gasps again, her voice faint and broken, as if the strength is leaving her. Buceo leans closer, crying harder, begging her cousin not to give up. Around them, panic grows, with people rushing to fetch water, others calling for a doctor, their voices rising into the night. The once joyous party has turned into a nightmare, the truth now dangling in the air, too heavy to ignore. Folake may deny it, but suspicion spreads quickly, and every eye remains fixed on her. The struggle for breath is no longer just Talyawani's fight, it has become a test for everyone who witnessed the betrayal hidden behind a mother's hand. Just then Dr. Adebayo, a guest and local physician, steps forward, his calm presence cutting through the panic. The crowd parts to let him through as he kneels beside Talyawani, quickly checking her pulse, her eyes, and the way her chest rises in desperate gasps. His expression grows serious, his voice firm as he speaks loud enough for everyone to hear. "These are not signs of excitement," he declares. "This is poisoning." The words fall heavy on the gathering, and a wave of horror spreads across every face. The joyful celebration that had filled the air only minutes earlier is replaced with stunned silence. Guests cover their mouths in disbelief, mothers clutch their children tightly, and elders shake their heads as if unable to accept what they have just heard. Panic turns into whispers, and whispers into accusations, every eye slowly turning toward Folake. The atmosphere grows thick, the truth now impossible to hide. Buceo grips her cousin's hand tighter, her tears falling fast as she begs the doctor to save her. Dr. Adebayo acts quickly, giving instructions to those nearby to fetch water, salt, and anything that could help while waiting to rush her to the hospital. His voice is calm but urgent, his hands steady as he tries to stabilize Talyawani. Yet even in that moment of action, the crowd cannot look away from Folake. Her body stiffens, her eyes darting nervously from one face to another, her lips trembling as the weight of suspicion crushes her. The people murmur louder now, anger rising like fire. Some shake their heads in disbelief, others glare at Folake with disgust. "How could a mother do this?" someone whispers, the question spreading quickly among the shocked guests. Folake opens her mouth to defend herself, but the words stumble out weak and unconvincing. Her forced smile is gone, replaced by fear and shame as the truth begins to corner her. Meanwhile, Dr. Adebayo's firm announcement echoes again in everyone's mind: poisoning. The word changes everything, tearing away the joy of the evening and replacing it with sorrow and betrayal. The villagers no longer see a celebration. They see a crime unfolding before their eyes. What should have been a night of honor for Talyawani now stands as a dark moment, and the mother who should have blessed her has instead become the center of suspicion and horror. Under pressure, Folake tries to escape, but elders stop her, their strong hands blocking every path she attempts to take. The crowd surrounds her, eyes blazing with anger, voices rising with questions she cannot answer. Whispers turn into shouts, and shouts into accusations, each word striking her like stones. She looks left and right, but there is no way out. Her legs tremble, her lips quiver, and the mask of strength she tried to wear begins to crumble in front of everyone. The elders stand tall, their faces stern, demanding the truth. "What did you give your daughter?" one of them thunders, his voice echoing across the silent gathering. Folktales shakes her head weakly, denying it again, but the cries of the people drown her out. Mothers shake their heads in disgust, fathers glare with fury, and children cling to their parents, unable to understand how a mother could harm her own child. The weight of their judgment presses on her, until she cannot stand it anymore. Tears spill down her cheeks, and her voice finally cracks. "I could not take it anymore," she sobs. "She was rising too fast, shining too bright. Everyone loved her, everyone celebrated her, while I was forgotten. I was jealous of my own child." Her confession falls like thunder, silencing the crowd for a moment before gasps and cries erupt. Some cover their mouths in shock, others cry out in disbelief. The truth is more painful than they imagined. Not a stranger's hand, but a mother's envy that almost destroyed an innocent life. Buseo clutches Talyawani tightly, her tears now mixed with rage. "How could you?" she screams, her voice shaking. "She is your daughter. She trusted you." The crowd echoes the same anger, their voices rising together like a storm. Folktales drops to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, begging for forgiveness, but no one moves to comfort her. The love and respect she once carried as a mother are gone, replaced with shame and dishonor. The elders turn their backs on her, declaring that she will no longer sit among them, no longer be trusted in gatherings, no longer be honored as a mother in the community. Folktales covers her face, her cries swallowed by the voices of the people. The night that should have been a celebration of success has become a lesson of betrayal, and her downfall is now complete for everyone to see. Rushed to the hospital, Talyawani fights for her life as nurses and doctors move quickly around her. Her body is weak, her breath shallow, but her spirit refuses to give up. Machines beep, oxygen is placed over her face, and injections are given as the medical team works tirelessly to save her. Buseo stays close, praying with tears in her eyes, refusing to leave her side even for a moment. Every second feels like an eternity. The memory of the party now a distant shadow compared to the battle happening inside the cold hospital room. The doctors whisper among themselves, unsure if she will make it through the night. The poison has spread fast, attacking her strength, but Talyawani's heart keeps beating, refusing to stop. Her fingers twitch, her chest rises slowly, and though her body trembles, she clings to life. Buseo holds her hand tightly, whispering, "Don't leave us, please don't give up." The sound of her cousin's voice becomes a lifeline, a reminder that she is not alone in this fight. Outside the ward, news spreads quickly. The entire town gathers, waiting anxiously, their hearts heavy with fear. Elders who once danced in celebration now sit quietly, praying for her recovery. Mothers weep for the young girl who became a victim of envy. Fathers shake their heads in disbelief, and everyone wonders if she will have the strength to return. The hospital corridors are filled with whispers, each one hoping for a miracle. Hours pass like years, but slowly, the tide begins to turn. Talyawani's breathing steadies, her pulse grows stronger, and her eyelids flutter open. The doctors exchange hopeful glances, amazed at her willpower. "She is a fighter," one of them says softly, recognizing that her spirit is carrying her where medicine could only try. Buseo cries tears of relief, thanking God and holding her cousin's hand as if she would never let go again. Against all odds, Talyawani survives. Her resilience stuns everyone, turning her from just a young girl into a symbol of strength. What was meant to destroy her becomes the reason people look at her with admiration. She rises from the shadow of betrayal, no longer just a victim, but proof that even in the face of poison, a determined heart can beat back death and claim victory. Folktales is disgraced, taken before community leaders, her head lowered as she walks through the silent crowd. The same people who once greeted her with smiles and respect now look at her with anger and disappointment. No one offers her comfort, no one calls her name with warmth. She is brought to the center of the meeting ground, where the elders sit in judgment, their faces heavy with sorrow and sternness. The air is tense, filled with whispers of betrayal. Mothers shake their heads, unable to understand how a woman could harm the child she carried. Fathers stand tall, their eyes cold, demanding answers that have already been revealed. Children hide behind their parents, peeking out with fear, hearing the story of a mother's jealousy that nearly destroyed a young life. Folktales tries to speak, but her voice cracks, and no one believes her words anymore. The eldest among the leaders rises slowly, his staff striking the ground. His voice carries across the gathering as he declares that Folktales has broken the most sacred trust, that of a mother's love. He speaks of how her envy poisoned not only her daughter's body, but the heart of the community. Each word is like a heavy stone, and Folktales bows her head lower, tears streaming down her face. She pleads for forgiveness, but her cries are drowned out by the murmurs of the crowd, who no longer see her as a woman of honor. One by one, the leaders speak, their verdict clear. She will no longer be allowed to sit in family gatherings, no longer be trusted in community decisions, no longer be respected among her peers. Her name, once spoken with respect, is now marked with shame. Folktales collapses to her knees, weeping, but no one moves to lift her. Even her own relatives turn their backs, unable to bear the weight of her betrayal. Meanwhile, the community praises Talyawani for her courage, celebrating her survival as a blessing. She becomes a symbol of strength, her story spreading beyond IJ as a warning and a lesson. Folktales, once a proud mother, is left alone, stripped of dignity. Her punishment not only in banishment but in the memory of what she lost. Her judgment is final, her downfall complete, and her name will forever remind others of the danger of envy and the destruction it brings. Sometimes betrayal comes not from strangers, but from those closest. Talyawani's voice rang clear across the gathering, her words carrying the weight of everything she had endured. The people of IJ listened in silence, their eyes fixed on the young woman who had faced death and returned stronger. She stood tall, no longer the trembling girl from that night, but a survivor whose story had become a lesson for all. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. But survival, courage, and truth will always triumph, she continued, her tone filled with strength. Murmurs of agreement spread through the audience, and heads nodded in respect. The same people who once danced at her party, who later wept in fear of losing her, now clapped their hands together in loud applause, their hearts moved by her resilience. Talyawani smiled softly, her eyes shining, though a trace of pain lingered in them. She did not hide the scars of betrayal. Instead, she wore them as proof of what she had overcome. Every person watching her felt the message deeply, that jealousy destroys, but strength and honesty can rebuild. Children leaned on their parents, learning from her words, and elders wiped tears from their eyes, proud of the courage she showed. The atmosphere, once clouded by sorrow, now bloomed with hope. Drums began to beat again, but this time not for empty celebration. They echoed for victory, for truth, for a future reclaimed. The people rose to their feet, their cheers filling the air, honoring Talyawani not just as a young girl with dreams, but as a woman who turned pain into power. As the crowd celebrated her strength, Buseo stood nearby, clapping the loudest, pride filling her chest. She had seen every moment of the struggle, and now she witnessed the triumph. Talyawani lifted her hand toward her cousin, a silent thank you for standing by her when no one else understood. Together, they shared a smile that spoke louder than words. That night, the lesson became clear to everyone. Betrayal may come from within, but it cannot erase courage. The applause grew louder, the cheers brighter, and Talyawani's new chapter began with love, honor, and strength that could never be taken away. Hi, Besties Cherry Blossom, thank you so much for watching till the end. 2 hearts, please don't forget to like, thumbs up, drop your thoughts in the comments, speech balloon, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Bell sparkles. Bye. Waving hand.